Hello, Rafi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Welcome to Mindful Leaders Inherited Legacies. I'm grateful that you're joining me from Paris. And I just want to tell you and our viewers as well that the purpose of this program is to be inspired by individuals like yourself from your life experiences, your reflections, and especially your drive. Rafi, you've had an incredibly interesting life journey so far. You were born in Lebanon. You lived through the early years of the civil war in Lebanon. At the age of 17, you can correct me anytime you want, but from what I remember, at the age of 17, 16, 17, you moved to France. After a few different, your education and some different jobs and careers, you actually become the chief operating officer of Publications Nouvelles, maybe around the age of 25. So it's quite young. And eventually you purchase this company. You later establish a company called FranceNet, one of the first internet companies in France. And at a time when people, I know personally, at a time when people rarely had computers, let alone having an email address or even any kind of connectivity to any network. So after this part of your life, you created and you led various internet service providers, ISPs, such as Violet, Fluxus, Ozone, and then you establish where you're at right now, which is Sen.se. A few things I need to mention before I ask my questions, and that's the fact that you've invented Nabaztag, the first smart internet connecting device. And later you developed, which for me is quite extraordinary, the other device, which is called Mother. And this device that works as a hub, I think, from home sensors. So my final point is that I'm proud to actually say is that this element of yours where you in 2017, you were elected as knight or chevalier of the Légion d'honneur, which is the highest French award. So I've heard a lot about you. We've had a chance to meet several years back. I know the wonderful things that you've done in your professional career and the wonderful innovations that you've made. But I want to know, who is Rafi? Who is this human being behind the role of this serial entrepreneur?
Well, there's a way I define myself to myself. I mean, when I think about myself, I always think about myself as a padar, P-A-D-A-R. Padar stands for, in French, Petit Arménien de Ain el-Remeni, the little Armenian from Ain el-Remeni. So Ain el-Remeni is the suburb of Beirut where I was born and raised and where I lived all my time in Lebanon, so for 17 years. And it's not an Armenian neighborhood. There are Armenian neighborhoods in Beirut, but this was actually not at all. It's a poor Christian neighborhood. There were 3-4 Armenian families there, and this is where I was raised. And I think that everything that I have become is due to me being a padar initially. So, well, this is the kind of story you build afterwards. I don't know if this is true, but this is the story I like about myself. And it's partly true. I mean, there are lots of things that are helps to shape who I am now, or everything I have done afterwards.
Go ahead.
So being a padar is being, because I mean, what was difficult being a small Armenian in a mainly Lebanese neighborhood was, well, Christian Lebanese don't actually like Armenians very much. So when you grow up with lots of racist remarks, when everybody calls you basturma in the streets, and say a few words in Armenian, and everybody laughs at you because, well, you know that not speaking good in Lebanese well, I mean, speaking broken Lebanese in Lebanese is speaking like an Armenian. I mean, speaking like an Armenian means speaking broken Lebanese.
So you're not really acknowledged as a Lebanese. That's what you're saying.
Yes, I mean, yeah. And it's funny because when you look at everything that Jews says about themselves and how anti-Semitism remarks used to be about Jews, we had exactly the same as Armenians living in Lebanon. Like they only do business between themselves, and they only look for the money, and they don't belong here. It's not their real country. And in the same time, you feel like a Lebanese. I mean, like a small Lebanese child. You feel like a Lebanese because you like Lebanon. This is where you belong. This is your country. So you have this both duality of being fully Armenian, living in an Armenian family. When we spoke Armenian, I mean, we did everything in Armenian, but at the same time having the hostility of the environment. But wanting to be part of this outside world. And then there was the third component to this, which was going to a French school, because I went to a French school from a very early age. So I had this triple identity of being an Armenian and Lebanese and kind of a French, speaking 3 languages, speaking Lebanese with an Armenian accent, speaking Arabic with a French accent, and speaking French with a Lebanese accent. So it is a situation where you don't belong to any community completely. I mean, not even Armenians. I mean, when I was with other Armenians in Lebanon who lived generally, who went in Armenian schools, who lived in Armenian neighborhoods, I was not part of them because I was not living in the same. I didn't have the same culture, neither the same friends or things, and so you are part of 3 groups and not fully part of none of them.
It's like being a minority within a minority within a minority, kind of,
yes.
In that kind of sense.
And this feeling of being a minority is very hard and very helpful.
Let's expand. I'm curious to hear what you're going to say.
It's very hard because, well, on a daily basis, I mean, you're not very happy when you come home from school and all the other kids in the school laugh at you, etc. So it's not really funny. And when you go to school and nobody is able to pronounce your name correctly and everything, but you have this feeling that you have to work harder than anybody else, because you have to make extraordinary things, otherwise people will laugh at you. So you cannot be average. So the only way to make people shut up and be recognized is to be outstanding things. You cannot be just average. You cannot just do mundane things, and so you have to work much more, or be more imaginative, more creative than anybody else. Otherwise, they will laugh at you.
It's interesting you say this, because your parents, your parents actually would say, when you would actually describe how if you received a certain level of fame in France, obviously, and when we were talking about your parents would say, oh, no, it's as long as we survive, that's enough. Menk ovenkvor, who are we to actually be expected to actually build something or make great things from ourselves? So how odd is it that, your parents, survivor or descendants of genocide, who did everything they can just to survive and just to thrive, as best as possible, don't be seen, don't make a big fuss, don't let people see you, because that could cause you into trouble. And here you are doing the opposite. Is it because of what your parents were saying, or how you grew up, or because of the bullying or the harassment that you faced in Lebanon that you felt that are the reasons or the drives that you've received to succeed in life?
I think it's all of this is right. I mean, the fact that your parents say don't get noticed or don't do anything that get you under the spotlight.
Grab your attention, yeah.
Grab the attention makes you feel like maybe if I can do something really extraordinary, it will be okay. I mean, it's also always a way of to get away with all these things, either the bullying or the fact that you don't need to be noticed, is to make things that are so outstanding that they protect you.
Which is also why you wanted to say, maybe you wanted to make history. You're watching history take place. You want to also be part of making something in history, not just being the observer, but the doer. Is that why you're a kind of a risk taker? Because you do take risks. That takes a lot of courage.
But even when I was a kid in school, I mean, I was the one who wrote plays, who organized theater classes, and I mean, I was the creative guy of this of the school, and then I was a good I was very good at school because I thought that this would help me from bullying, and everything was done for that. I mean, doing things that others don't do is a way to be protected.
Right. And for you, when you moved to France, here's another place where you're kind of a minority, right?
Yeah, third layer of minority.
Third layer of minority. And I mean, you've just taken instead of just going with the flow, being, another citizen, do what you have to do, you seem to just, there seems to be some kind of a strong sense of self-belief in you that you will and you can do things that are unique, innovative, and maybe the first even in France. Forget the fact that you're an Armenian from Lebanon, descendant of the genocide. Here you are, pushing all the buttons and moving forward. And from what I know from your personality, it's not because you want to be famous, and it's not because you want to earn a lot of money. The intention is more. What is that? And where does this come from, Rafi?
Well, actually, it's not because I was very assured of myself or things like that. It's the contrary. I mean, it's completely full of doubt. I mean, every time I do something, there's always this very Armenian way of thinking that says, why is it me who has the idea? I mean, if it's a good idea, why is it me that who have it? I mean, we're not supposed to be the ones who make the great things. So how come it's me who's doing this thing? So and being full of doubt is very helpful because it helps you think twice. It hurts. I mean, it's not a pleasant feeling, but it helps you work the details and think twice about everything you're doing and never be sure about what you're doing. So it's a very painful and helpful at the same time. Yeah, there is something I can't explain, is an ability to I have to walk on water.
Explain that to me, because that sounds like a Bruce Lee philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, once you have the idea that we're going to make Wi-Fi connected rabbits, there is, I mean, I just go there and do it. I mean, there is.
But nothing scares you, it seems. You know, it just, nothing is, it feels like you don't see any obstacles ahead of you. You're quite perseverant that way.
Yeah, well, first I have I mean, you have this double feeling, which is a strong conviction that this is what we have to do. I mean, when I first discovered the internet in the early 90s, I was really convinced that this was the thing that I had, I mean, that has to be done, that this thing was going to be the next thing. And I didn't suspect that it would be as big as it got, but that this was really something that would get some traction. And then from there on, you just go and do it. I mean, it's like there's a scene from an Indiana Jones movie that I like very much, where he puts his foot in the
on the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, there is no bridge. He puts his foot in the emptiness, and the bridge appears under your foot. So you take this first risk with this certainty that there will be a bridge where there is nothing.
Yeah.
But you cannot wait to the bridge to appear before you take the step.
Right. It's I like that scene as well, because there is nothing. It's just a cliff. So
Yes.
it's the risk that you're taking to actually walk as though you're going to fall off the cliff, but then the bridge appears. So that there's you have to take that risk if you believe in something very seriously. I'm going to go to a little bit different now, a different direction. I'm going to talk about your family history. Both your grandmothers are from Constantinople. Your mother's father was from Gesaria. And I think he was 14 during the genocide. And the only way he actually escaped was by he was dressed, or they dressed him up as a girl so that he can actually flee. So that's that part of your maternal side. Whereas your father's side, your father's father was from Aksaray, and he was taken by the Ottoman Turks. So he was gone. His wife, your grandmother, with 3 kids, and your father's not born at this time, with 3 kids, they go through the deportations. They go through the deportations, they arrive in Deir Zor. They live in a camp where your grandmother is making bread for survival purposes for her 3 kids. And somehow your grandmother and her 3 kids, they trickle down to Lebanon, and that's where they, by chance and by luck, they meet up with your grandfather, who they thought was dead. So you've heard this story 3 times in your life, 3 times that your father has told you, several times, even before he passed away. Tell me, in what ways do you believe the memories of the stories? And I didn't even, scratch the surface of the things that I know about your family story. But tell me in what ways you believe the memories or these stories of the genocide have impacted your life, your outlook in life.
First, I first hear these stories very late in my life. I mean, I was like 18 or 20 years old when the first time my father told me this story, and then he told it several times afterwards. So I don't think it's part of my early story, of my upbringing story. But it helps. I mean, it's part of my feeling that we are survivors. I mean, this is the survivor story, and of the kind of the positive way of seeing the genocide. I mean, as far as there is a positive way to, which is not they killed us, but we survived. I mean, even in the greatest, in the worst situations, there is a way to go through, and you're not sure that the worst things are going to happen. So you can survive in the worst situation, which is a positive way to put the story, and the more helpful way of telling the story than just lamenting on the fact that they killed 1.5 million Armenians. So it's a way of seeing the cup which is half full.
Cool. And what about your sense of pride?
There is a double sense of pride. So the first sense of pride is this. So to people who had the courage to go out and build it all together again, and to start it all over again in Lebanon, and plus the fact that for my father, he lost everything during the Lebanese war and had at 50 years old to restart it all over again for the second time in his life. So and I think that there is another part which is important in the Armenian history, is the fact that our history and our genocide was not recognized. The fact of being
it's like an open wound. It's like the process of healing is not taking place because that wound is not sewn or is not closed because it's not being acknowledged.
Yes. And I think that there is two tragedies in Armenian history, which is the first is genocide, and the second is the fact that it's not recognized. So living with the history and the fact that it is not recognized is the second wound. That the first one was lived by the people who were there and who died during the genocide, but the second of not being recognized as people is a wound that each one of us still lives, and the fact that most people everywhere in the world are indifferent to what happened to us or to who we are. The fact that we are the kind of insignificant, which meets what my parents said, which makeoving for.
So if you
it's part of our wounds, and I think it's very important in who we are and who we become.
So you mentioned these tragedies, layer after layer of traumas that are not necessarily healed. So it's just adding on to the previous one. In December of last year, you visited Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. What were your impressions? And what, in your opinion, is something you think the nation or the people should work towards?
It's very hard to answer this question, especially in English. But
do you feel that it's not a trip that you take on a regular basis to come to Armenia, and you're describing me the traumas that these people, this nation, this ethnic group has undergone, and here's another tragedy that takes place with the 44-day war. And based on the conversations we've had and what you've seen while you were here, obviously you've seen devastation, both on a collective basis, on the resources. But in the very brief time that you've been here, I'm sure there were some things that you said, I wish we did this, or I wish we felt. What are those wishes or that wish list?
Well, my feeling being in Artsakh is the confirmation, I mean, the real physical confirmation of the total indifference of the world about what's happening to us, and that anything could happen to us and nobody will give a shit about it.
Right.
So and that the only way Armenians could get out with that is by counting on themselves. And that the only resource Armenia as a country has or could have is being a people who have a diaspora. And not just the diaspora that sends money or something like that. The diaspora is something very, very helpful because it's a network, and we live in a world of networks, etc. But the problem is that during the last years, the diaspora is getting more and more turned off. People, Armenians in the diaspora, are less and less motivated. When you go to demonstrations for April 24, there hardly are a few hundred or even maybe 1,000 people. So the first thing we need to do, at least as people from the diaspora, is to revive the diaspora of creating a new pride in being Armenian, and not just a simple nationalist pride, but just being proud of our history, of who we are, and to show our children that we are not just old history, but current history, that we are cool factors. I think that the best thing that ever happened to Armenians is System of a Down. It was one of the first time that my children, who are Armenian, Lebanese, French, Italian, it was the first time that they felt proud to be Armenian, because it was another image of what being Armenian was. It's not shameful. It's not about eating just mantı and going to church. It's real iconic thing. And this is one of the reasons why Nabaztag was called Nabaztag. You can do a cool device that everybody in the world will use. And why not give it an Armenian name? It's as good as giving it a Japanese name. You had so if you can do this kind of things, just to show that we are just cool. Cool is a political stance. We have to mobilize, to have all the young generation of Armenians everywhere in the world feel like they are Armenian, that they are part of the community, and by having them all get into this, we will create a force that will eventually help Armenia as a country. Otherwise, it's this is the best resource on which we can count, and this is where I think we should start, at least for us people from the diaspora.
Right.
Otherwise, you have a minority of people who are still motivated, and they're going to work in the few parties and organizations that exist, in which there are fewer and fewer members to help Armenia. But it's not enough. It's not a resource, and it's not going to change deeply what the current situation.
Right. I wish we had more time to talk. And I hope that you'll be back in Armenia. I think there are many interesting things that I'm sure you can contribute here as well. Also from the diaspora, what you're doing is fantastic in France. Thank you, Rafi Haladjian, for this amazing and inspirational conversation, and for taking the time to sit with me. Thank you, Rafi.
Thank you, Lara.